If you've been on Twitch or YouTube recently, you've probably seen Delta Force Hawk Ops blowing up. And this is really 3 games in one. It's got a full-fledged campaign, it's got a mode that's pretty much directly competing with Battlefield, and it's got an extraction shooter. And as an avid Escape from Tarkov player, I'm only going to be talking about the extraction shooter mode, which even there's some confusion there. In the game, it's called Tactical Turmoil, and on the website, it's called Hazard Operations. But either way, I want to dive into what it is, what works well, what doesn't work well, and why I think right now is a really important moment for extraction shooters. First of all, at a 10,000 foot view, this game mode is an extraction shooter. So the main gameplay loop is going to be very familiar to a Tarkov player. You pick a map, you jump in, you fight players, you fight AI, all while completing missions, looting up, and trying to extract to do it all over and over and over again. If you live, you get to keep everything you extracted with, and if you die, you lose everything that you brought in. But I think if you're somebody that came into this wanting it to feel like Escape from Tarkov, you might be a little disappointed. This is without a doubt an extraction shooter, and so it is in a way a competitor to Escape from Tarkov, but it is not a direct competitor to Tarkov, as in it wants to be Escape from Tarkov, but just do everything better. This wants to be a more arcadey experience. This game wants to have a lower barrier of entry and be a little bit more casual. And they want it to appeal to more people, all while keeping the fundamentals of what make an extraction shooter, and even maybe advancing those fundamentals a little bit. But if you're someone that popped into a stream or watched a video and thought, why does this game look like Call of Duty? Well, that's kind of a feature, not a bug. Now, over the years, we've seen games come and try to market themselves as extraction shooters, and personally, almost every single one of them has kind of disappointed me and let me down. It felt like people didn't really understand the core of what makes an extraction shooter fun. Tarkov pretty much invented the genre, and so since people really only had like one game to look to, they often ended up copying the wrong things and leaving out or overly simplifying the really important stuff. Now, I have spent a lot of time trying to kind of reverse engineer and think through what are the core aspects, what are the fundamentals of an extraction shooter that make it that and make it fun. And I've kind of boiled it down to, in my opinion, 3 things. One is lethality. You need to be scared for your life. And the flip side of that coin is you need to feel like you can kill a lot of people. And that's definitely a balance to strike, right? If the time to kill is way too long, it feels like the people with enough money to buy the best stuff just stomp everyone else. But if the time to kill feels too short, then there's not a reason to go loot and find better things because those things don't matter. But a good extraction shooter or a good game in general finds that balance, and you need to feel like you can have a clutch moment where you can have a come up, where you feel like with a well-placed shot, you can take down anybody. You can take down a Chad. But you also need to feel like you can progress, and you want to feel like that progression helps you. The second thing, the second core part of an extraction shooter is loot. Looting needs to feel good. You need to be able to take out a lot of loot. There needs to be a lot of loot to take out. The whole kind of experience around looting needs to be really solid. These games are basically Loot Gremlin, the video game, Loot Hoarder, the video game. That's kind of what it's all there for. And that actually works in tandem with that lethality. Those two things work really well together. You need to feel like when you kill a bunch of people, you can take a bunch of their stuff, and that entire experience from the UI to the type of loot you can take needs to be there and needs to be really fleshed out. And the third and final thing is progression. What am I doing all of this for? If you're just doing all of this for the sake of itself and there's nothing that you're progressing towards, that experience can get pretty old pretty quickly. So there needs to be some sort of progression, some carrot at the end of the stick that you're chasing. If the fundamentals are there, I believe you can change around a lot of what's around the fundamentals and still make a really fun game. A good example of this is Arena Breakout Infinite, which was kind of the first game, in my opinion, to really understand these fundamentals and do them pretty well. Personally, I was a little underwhelmed by the progression in Arena Breakout Infinite, but I only played in the beta and it might get better. But I felt like it understood the loot and the lethality mindset of it, and they made some changes to make it a little bit more arcadey, although it was definitely kind of wearing its Tarkov inspiration on its sleeve there. Delta Force seems to really understand these fundamentals as well, and is trying to kind of hold a new position on that scale. Tarkov is kind of the OG, the most hardcore extraction shooter. Arena Breakout was a little bit more arcadey than that, and Delta Force is a little bit more arcadey than Arena Breakout. My biggest compliment of Delta Force is how well it executes on these fundamentals and even advances the genre as a whole. The synergy between loot and lethality is absolutely there in Delta Force. You can clutch a 1v3 and that feels amazing, but that also lets you know that you can get wiped at almost any time and you are genuinely afraid for your life. You can have a huge come up raid and walk out super thick, or you can be a loot goblin and try and just skirt the map and loot trinkets and make money. There are items that feel really good to find that are really rare and sell for a lot of loot. and the experience and the UI of looting is amazing and really intuitive. Progression, that third thing, feels pretty solid in this game so far as well. There are tons of quests to do. They have their own version of a hideout called the Black Site that gives you tons of perks to your character and reasons to progress. And the cases also give you a reason to kind of like farm a little bit. They represent themselves as different tabs on your stashes, which I think is a cool quality of life. And it seems like it's got kind of like a lot of progression there, where somebody that plays more casually can unlock some of those cases. And there are even bigger ones that are crazy expensive. And that's there for the, the grinder, the person that's going to play a ton. So I think they really nailed the fundamentals. And one of the things I love about this game is they're really actually pushing the genre forward by creating emergent gameplay and really dynamic experiences. In addition to the quests that you get outside of a raid, in raid there are missions. Missions give you money or opportunity to find rare loot, and there are tons of them. Some of them are just kill people, some of them are kill a certain boss, and they scale all the way up to these like really highly curated, almost like movie-like experiences. Then they take all these and they make every raid dynamic by randomly spawning these missions. Some raids you might only have the boring ones and you can kind of do them to get extra money, but some raid might have the high-end juicer ones that give you great loot and are great catalysts for PvP. Then on top of that, they add the Mandel Brick, which is another super rare loot item. This spawns very infrequently, but when it's on the map, it's a big deal. If you get it, if you have it, you are marked on the map for every other person in the raid, so they can chase you down to go get it. And if you decode it, you and your entire squad gets a ton of high tier loot. This is another fantastic PvP catalyst. These dynamic experiences are something that I have thought that Tarkov and this genre as a whole have desperately needed. Obviously, Tarkov doesn't need them exactly like this, but the ability for each raid to actually change or shape your goal or priorities in raid is awesome. In Escape from Tarkov and Late Wipe, there's really nothing left to do than shift W the closest spawn and just fight over and over again with no external forces. This is a really cool way where every raid can feel different. You can utilize all these different things as a catalyst for PvP, and if there's no PvP there, you get some cool loot. Or this actually also even helps kind of more casual players, because they can get a lay of the land and look at the map and say, okay, I probably need to avoid this area. I can go over to this area and complete a quest or do whatever they want to do. I just think that this makes so much sense. They also take one of my favorite parts of Arena Breakout Infinite, which was like the high roller lobbies, where every map has the normal lobby and then a high roller lobby where you have to bring in a certain amount of gear to even get in, and there's higher chance for loot. I think this does a good job of filtering the kind of like hardcore players to the top and creating a better experience for both types of player. If you're more casual, you're probably not running into as many chads because they're up in the higher tier lobbies trying to get better PvP and better loot. And it's once again a carrot at the end of the stick. If you are more casual, every once in a while, you might want to try out the high roller lobby as well. Additionally, Delta Force has some of the greatest quality of life features I've ever seen in a video game. I can make a whole video about this, but the firing range is really, really detailed. The details page on any gun does a fantastic job of giving you every piece of information you would want to know about that gun and the recoil and everything. You can carry player bodies when they're down. There's an incredible loadout menu with the ability to save presets or even just rebuy the whole last kit that you had on you, and so much more. It does all of these things while being unashamedly a little bit more of an arcadey experience. When your teammates go down, they aren't just dead. You can actually revive them. There are hit markers. There are hero or class abilities. There's no friendly fire, and the visuals are definitely more in line with something like Call of Duty, same with the gunplay. Now, these more quote-unquote arcadey features will definitely turn a lot of people away from the game, and that is totally fine, but they are definitely intentional, and it helps them carve out a new place for an extraction shooter to live. But it's definitely not all sunshine and rainbows. There are absolutely some things about Delta Force that concern me. Some small things that you might expect from an alpha, and some things that might be a little bit more fundamental or core to this game. Starting with right now, the time to kill feels really, really short, which can be a really frustrating experience. It doesn't really help the more casual players because they feel like they just get deleted. And once again, like we talked about earlier, if you're not threading that needle right, you're like, well, what am I grinding high tier loot for? It feels like if I spend 1,000,000 rubles on the best gear and the best armor and the best helmet, I'm still just getting shot twice and immediately dying. So the time to kill feels a little bit short. The map design on a macro scale is amazing, but on a micro scale, there are many of little instances that frustrate you. Invisible walls or places where you feel like you should be able to hop up or mantle up and take an angle, and you can't. You go to do a flank and you feel like you have to run 10 minutes around an entire section of the map. So high level map design is great. Kind of micro level definitely leaves a lot to be desired. The matchmaking is definitely interesting and can be a little bit confusing at times. There were times where I felt like, we were having one experience all day, and as soon as I put on purple gear, immediately we were just dying to giga sweats like the first people we ran into. But if I do a pistol run, I feel like we're just dunking on people. So there might be some gear-based matchmaking going on under the hood. We're not sure. The fact that there's so many different maps and then you have to double that for the normal mode and the high roller lobby means sometimes you can wait a little bit longer to get into some of those. A lot of the matchmaking problems could just be due to the fact that there's not a lot of people playing right now because this is just an alpha and they're kind of rolling out access. So it was just, there were a few things there that maybe concerned me, especially because we're not 100% sure how it works. But that kind of leads me to the next thing, which is bots. Yes, there are player bots. I have even been, it's, you know, squads of 3. I've even been with one other person and we're doing squad fill, trying to find some cool people, and it puts a bot in our squad. You can absolutely tell it steals the loot. It runs in weird directions. It shoots seemingly with infinite ammo. It never revives you. I think on a whole, that really cheapens the experience. I'd rather them maybe do an extra faction of AI that they can scale up if there aren't that many players playing so that the raids can feel dynamic. I know it's kind of 6 one way, half dozen the other. It's bots either way, but it just feels like it cheapens the experience when you kill a 3-man and you're like, I don't think those were real people. So the bots are definitely a little bit frustrating. Once again, could just be because of how many people are playing the game right now. And then that brings me to the final major concern for this game, and probably the biggest concern, and that is the monetization. It is a free-to-play game. It's a free-to-play game that will come to PC, console, and mobile. And there's a whole lot to unpack there. This is seemingly an extremely high budget game, or at least it feels that way. And so there will absolutely be microtransactions for them to give this game away for free. We don't know if it's going to be cosmetic only. I think we're all kind of crossing our fingers, but at the same time, bracing for the fact that you can kind of tell that this might end up going pay to win. I really hope it doesn't, but you know, free to play, that's kind of where we are in 2024. There could be subscriptions for secure containers like other games have done. There could be just buying the currencies. You can kind of tell with some of the menus in the game that, you know, there's going to be microtransactions. And that kind of leads into just like the general homogenous feeling of the fact that they're putting this on all these other platforms. And so the menus feel very, you know, mobile inspired, or at least, you know, mobile friendly, which can kind of turn a lot of people off. And then there's even the added layer of the fact that they're doing 3 different game modes. They're doing the campaign, the battlefield mode, and the extraction mode. And so all of this smashed together where you've got 3 different modes that are trying to all come to all of the platforms and smash all of that experience into something that's free. And it just makes you wonder about what the monetization is going to be, or where the support is going to be, whichever mode brings more money. This is going to be the biggest concern moving forward. Ultimately, we really aren't going to be able to see how any of these concerns play out until the game fully releases and has some time to cook. Fortunately though, the game is free. So if you can get access, it doesn't really cost you much to hop in and try it out for yourself. I do find the comparisons to be a little bit funny. Arena Breakout was viscerally compared to Tarkov and called a direct copy and paste of Tarkov, and now Delta Force is being called a copy and paste of Arena Breakout, which I find hilarious, and obviously also compared to Escape from Tarkov, because Tarkov is kind of the original extraction shooter. These games are kind of moving across the scale, becoming slightly more arcadey as they go, and a lot of times taking the best of what came before them and maybe even adding more. I think a lot of the comparisons to Tarkov are because people want a game to directly compete with Tarkov. A lot of people, including myself, want Escape from Tarkov, but on a better engine that's better optimized with all these quality of life features. And that's definitely not what this game is trying to be. And I probably don't think we're going to get that game anytime soon, although I'd love to be wrong. At the end of the day though, video games are supposed to be fun, and I have been having so much fun playing Delta Force. I don't know if I'll have 20 hours worth of fun or 2,000 hours worth of fun. I don't know if the monetization will ruin the fun, or if they will cut the fun short by deciding to focus on the other game modes instead of this game. But I am just excited that we have more games that seem to understand the fundamentals of what makes extraction shooter games fun. And I hope that more devs follow suit and carve out their own little niche in this extraction shooter genre. But I definitely want to hear from you. What do you think? Have you been able to get it and play Delta Force? Do you enjoy it? Have you just been able to watch on streams? Is it something that you're excited for, or you think is going to be DOA due to the monetization? Definitely let me know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for taking the time to check out this video. If you like it, think about dropping a like. I stream Escape from Tarkov a lot, and right now a lot of Delta Force on my Twitch channel and here on YouTube. All those links will be down below. And if you're looking for people to hang out with and play some games, our Discord is a great place to be as well. Thank you again for stopping by, and I will definitely see y'all on the next one.